Hello there, beautiful sacred hearts, awakened ones. I'm Monica Bermudez, an intuitive quantum energy healer. And so I'm here for Love Wisdom Message channel through the Sacred Heart. I want to talk about Lemuria and Atlantis. And just remembering, some of these ancient civilizations in case you haven't heard of them before. And just talking about it is also activating this remembrance. And I'll get into all of that in this video. But first of all, let me ask you, how many of you resonate with Lemuria? And how many of you resonate with Atlantis? And how many of you resonate with both? So I'll talk about what these civilizations are. If this is your first time hearing about it, welcome to the video that I'm about to share. And I also realized that I don't really have any other videos that talks about Lemuria and Atlantis in any of my YouTube channels. So I felt this is, appropriate to deliver this message that is also coming from the Sacred Heart, as I was feeling this nudge of this channeling to share with you and to also activate some of this remembrance as well. So Lemuria and Atlantis are known as these ancient civilizations that existed in the Pacific Ocean side, in Atlantis on the Atlantic Ocean side. And they were known to be very ancient civilizations, more than 10,000 years ago, I would say. And so a lot of the ancient history books don't talk about it because they only go to a certain point of, a few thousands of years, if you notice some of the history books. And I believe that the ancient Egyptian pyramids are recorded to be about 5,000 years ago. And so now, they're discovering new pyramids. For instance, in Bosnia, that one of the archaeologists discovered these really old pyramids. And so there's been a bit of a controversy, of course, with among some of the scientists, because what they're finding with these pyramids is that they're older than the ancient Egyptian pyramids. So you're talking about 30,000 years old or so. So this means that it would change a lot of the history books and so forth. So I feel like, a lot of the truth obviously has been hidden from us. But where we remember a lot of ourselves is through our own heart, when we really tap into our heart center, because that is the core to our soul essence. And in the soul, we carry so much of the memories of these past civilizations, because it is all interconnected to the Akashic records of our, past lives that we've lived in all these different physical forms. So, I feel like I am very Lemurian, and I am a Lemurian high priestess, and I've always felt this since I was little. But part of me also feels, when I tap into my own soul essence, is that I lived in both of these civilizations. So at one point, when I had completed some of the cycles in Lemuria, then I also incarnated in some aspect in Atlantis as well. So I experienced both. And so, part of you may be also feeling all of this as well. So Lemuria, be on the Pacific Ocean side, and Atlantis on the Atlantic Ocean side. Now, bear in mind that a lot, the Earth was very different then, for more than, thousands of years ago. If it's more than 10,000 years ago, I'm very certain that the way the Earth was structured is very different than you would see it in this present moment. That means that certain countries would have been shuffled in different form, meaning that the continent of Lemuria would have extended really far into the Pacific side of the ocean, into maybe near South America, and maybe extended in some parts of Asia. It's a huge continent. And then the Atlantis, being on the Atlantic Ocean side, was, extending, near the northern Atlantic, and then going down to the south area of, and I'm sure that was a huge continent as well. So these two civilizations were very ancient. Of course, they were advanced, is what I'm trying to say, in their technology and their wisdom, and they carry a lot of sacred wisdom from the stars, because a lot of the beings that lived in these civilizations originated from certain star systems. For example, like Sirius, like Palladian. And so they started these civilizations here on Earth to help Earth, of course, to help Earth in gaining, its wisdom and Mother Earth. And also there were other civilizations that existed as well during that time that were already part of Earth. So I guess they would be called like Earth seeds. And so a lot of, the civilizations that were part of these civilizations from other stars, they were known as star seeds. And so going, to Lemuria, for me, the energy of Lemuria feels very like motherly. It feels like the divine feminine energy. And when I tap into the Atlantis side of the energy, feels more like divine masculine energy. And this is, like looking at it from a divine aspect. I'm not talking about the current situation of like, whatever the patriarch energy is right now. So this is before things, got corrupt in some way. And I'll get into that in the video for a bit if you're wondering about all this. But, in Lemuria, for example, let's start with that one. So it felt very motherly to me, very divine feminine. And I know, for example, that I feel that there were so many temples that were, made of crystals from everywhere, from the water, from the air, they were very, in the etheric level as well. There were all sorts of creatures like the unicorns and the dragons and the mermaids, and there were many types of pyramids and so forth. And what I remember, what I feel that I had some visions that I see sometimes in images of myself, but when I remember, I feel more of the energy of it. And when I've also had a dream with Lemuria where I've seen it, and it just looks like this very glowing field of, mountainous, region, and it just looks like paradise to me. And it is just so very nature-like to me. It's the sense that I get when I tap into the energy and the memories of that with Lemuria. And when I look at the Atlantis, of course, Lemuria had their own technology as well. They use a lot of the crystals everywhere, right? And but when I tap into Atlantis, I feel like with Atlantis, they were all more about the technology and the science of things and the structures. And so that's more of the divine masculine energy. And so it just I see like all these pyramids in Atlantis, like right now as I'm talking to you, I'm getting these images, right, of like these huge pyramid likes that look more like the ones that we see like now in ancient or in Egypt, right, which is part of the ancient civilization. And so it is, been said that a lot when Atlantis went into the ocean before it sank, a lot of them migrated over to Egypt and took, a lot of their wisdom to Egypt itself, and passed the information along to the ancient Egyptian and all the information that they have, because they continue this bit of traditional way of doing things with the pyramids. And some of the rituals and the ceremonies were, similar to the way the Atlanteans did it. So there is a book actually that was written long ago, and it was also from ancient Greece, which ancient Greece was like way after, of Atlantis. But Plato wrote this book, and it is about Atlantis. And so and if you don't know, that Plato actually studied in a lot of the mystery schools of ancient Egypt. And so a lot of the ancient, mystery schools of Egypt carried a lot of wisdom about Atlantis and also Lemuria. And so when he gained all this knowledge, he wrote this philosophy in this book about Atlantis. So, I would recommend you check it out, because usually when we read other material, it also activates other aspects of our memory, of our DNA, of remembrance. So it's not like a remembrance that you can remember every detail, but it's just the feel, the energy, when you really tap into your heart and into your soul and what it's telling you, because that is where your memory resides, in your own spiritual DNA. And it's also, carried in this physical DNA as well, because there's some aspect of us that we carry some of this ancestral with that, with those who feel connected to the Lemuria or the Atlantis of these ancient civilizations. So that's really, how, like, a brief introduction of these two civilizations. And, I would love to hear some of your comments and what you're feeling, as you're hearing some of this information. And so for me, like the Lemurians, I feel like I was already like partially awakened, let's just say, as a child, because I've always looked for a lot of mysticism and mystery and things like the psychic development powers. And I, felt that I resonated with a lot of these things. So I was always looking for that as a child, to want to be around that kind of information. And then when I happened to run into a book that said about the lost civilization of Lemuria, by the author was, I believe it was W.S. Survey, Cerve, if anybody wants to look that up. But that's really what activated me more into this awakening of this civilization. So I was, so excited when I read about it that I just wanted to go and look everything up about Lemuria. And so that's, how I started to really activate more into the Lemuria. And so at some point, these two civilizations had their ending, right? Tragic ending. And there's many, many reasons why it did. So I have certain like images and impressions of, what happened to Lemuria when it went into the ocean. I feel that I was there when it all just collapsed. And it feels like, it was a lot of the natural disaster, but it was also just abuse of certain technology also that may have caused some of the downfall. And there may have been some corruption as well at some point. And so a lot of this, when I remember that the loss of this great civilization, of the sinking of an entire continent, I mean, it has to be like a huge heartbreak and such a deep grief that I was actually still carrying these wounds. And so when I remember this, of course, I went into this other deeper like depression. It's many years ago, and it took me like 1 or 2 years to like really, get myself back together. But I felt like, with this, I was also releasing a really deep ancient wound that I had, off the loss of this entire continent. So I feel that, and the same thing happened with Atlantis. There was this downfall with, some corruption that may have happened, or natural disasters, some of it caused by the technology. And so, the same thing, when you lose an entire continent, of course, it's going to have like this huge heartbreak and this huge grief. And if it's not really like, it could really, be buried within our own like cells and our own very, very ancient wounds is what I call them. And so that, may disrupt our lives now, because in some ways, when this whole pandemic happened, that, started like 2020, well, everything shut down. They went to this quarantine. There was this huge panic, and there still is somewhat of a panic still. But it was just more so then because nobody knew what was happening. But there was this also triggering of this other memory that was coming up, of remembrance of like, is this going to be the end of, this entire civilization or this humanity? Because, in some ways, some of us have lived through this like again, and it's almost like we were reliving it. And so it was also, bringing up to the surface some of this trauma, like was that, that was subconsciously in us. Now, when I worked with clients, I found that they had, some of this trauma come up during the times of when the sinking happened. and they went through, their own healing in their own way, and in support and facilitating in that to be able to release a lot of these wounds that were just deeply embedded and and that I had as well. And so, as such, I want to share with you that I am actually going to be on New Earth Network on Saturday, August 27th, which is on the new moon, and it's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Actually, yeah, it's 1 p.m. Eastern Time, but it's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific Time. And I am going to be giving a course actually about Lemuria and Atlantis and about the ancient wounds. And I want to deep dive a little further into these ancient wounds and what they are and how they've been impacting us in this current life as well. And then I'm also going to be channeling some light language to help with clearing some of these wounds, and to work at activating other aspects of our DNA for our remembrance of the times that we were either in Lemuria or in Atlantis, and just bringing back those spiritual gifts in us that we were. Because a lot of us, who are, what we call now like witches and wizards, or, priestess, high priestess, all those things, that, or scientists, because they did have scientists in Atlantis and Lemuria, but I feel they have more scientists in Atlantis. And so I feel like, the science that they use is not the same science they will use now. It's just more advanced, And so they have such amazing abilities as well, like psychic abilities, psychic development was just natural for them. The telepathy was very natural, talking mind to mind without having to use your mouth. You could just easily read each other's mind or thoughts, so forth. And it was just all like the energy, right? Energy exchange of one another. And they use, the mechanism of balance. So the word healing wasn't really like used. It was actually more like balance, keeping things balanced in its place. And then when everything started to just, get into this downhill, that balance was just very hard to maintain, because there was only a few that were trying to keep it in balance. And so that just made it harder to do with just a few. So now, so, going back to this course, I want to talk about a lot of this stuff, a lot of the Lemurian Atlantis. And so if you're really feeling called to this, please come join me. It's a $33 course, and I'll have all the links and descriptions in my YouTube, below. Check it out, and I would love to have you there, and we can talk more about this. But, it's like when I, tap into these energies, it's like there was, so much that we did together. So I'm feeling like with these ancient wounds that we have, that for one, it is time for us to have some reconciliation, some level of forgiveness in ourselves to whatever it is that we feel that, guilt or shame around that during that loss, or, during whatever may have happened, during the loss of these civilizations that made us have these feelings of like regret in some ways for not being able to support in so many ways for it to stay in balance. And so I want to, work with this with everybody, because I feel like with this ascension that we're in right now, it's going to be like the strongest ever. Okay, so it's now safe for us to really come out. So it is safe for us to come out now and be who we are, being called to be, whether that be a priestess, whether that be the witch or the wizard, or however you may call yourself, a special star seed, activator. And so, we are, here to help build this new earth foundation, or the way showers, right? And to come back in a much stronger way. So to me right now, Lemuria just feels very present. It feels like I haven't even like left. I just pretty much picked up wherever I was during that lifetime in the last one. And so I feel like in each one of us who resonates with this, with either one civilization, still has that, presence in them, in their DNA. And so that's why I want to like bring this course to help with all of that and build this new earth together, and through it, working through it like energetically. And so I am really thrilled and excited about this. So, that's pretty much the gist of like Lemuria and Atlantis. Would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And I will be sharing some more videos that are Lemuria or Atlantis. So I will be talking to you in the next Love Wisdom message. So if you enjoy videos like this, please subscribe and like and share, with others. And I will be coming back and sharing some more love wisdom messages with you that are channeled through the Sacred Heart. Sending you all so much love.